It's wonderful to be here with all of you, and I want to take just a moment and thank you for taking time out of your lives, not only to be here today, but to do this really important work of helping solve the issue of family and child homelessness throughout our country. You know, I'm sure everyone in the room knows this issue. It touches almost every aspect of American life. But unfortunately, outside of this room and throughout this country, many people are completely and totally unaware of the fact that child and family homelessness has actually been increasing over the last decade, while at the same time we've made great strides in reducing the number of chronically homeless single or childless adults. And so the timeliness of the work that you're doing is absolutely important, particularly as we struggle throughout this country to come out of the recession and help our entire country get back on its feet. I want to also thank the hosts of this morning's conference for inviting me to be here with you and for your dedication to one of the most under-talked about issues in our country today. You know, we hear a lot of discussion on the Hill about protecting middle-class families, and I think every single one of us in this room is dedicated to ensuring that middle-class families can make it through tough times and find prosperity. But there's not nearly enough discussion about families who are not middle-class. Families who strive to be middle class, who want to be middle class, but can't get there because of the circumstances in which they live or find themselves, either temporarily or long term. As you heard earlier, this issue is particularly important to me. I think I might be the only member of Congress who was homeless as a child. When I was a kid, I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona. And during the early 1980s, I was in elementary school. We had a very bad recession back then. Some of you weren't alive, but those of you who were will remember how we thought it was a really bad recession? We were like, oh, this is horrible. In the early 1980s, we really did struggle quite a bit in our country, and my family, like many other families across the country, struggled quietly. My dad was educated, he was an attorney. My mom finished high school, met my dad, got married, had kids, and raised 3 children, and so she dedicated her life to taking care of us 3 kids. But in the early 1980s, when that recession hit, my father's firm downsized and he lost his job. And as happens to many families during tough economic times, my parents got divorced. And after my parents got divorced, we went from a middle-class family that was struggling to 3 kids with a single mom who didn't have much in the way of job skills. And we went from being middle class to poor very, very quickly. I'll never forget one day, someone came and repossessed our family's car. Although who would take an orange El Camino is beyond me. But somebody did indeed take that orange El Camino. You know, some hipsters like rocking it out in Tucson today. At the time, I was confused. I mean, I was only 5 years old. I remember being confused about the car being taken, and just a few months later, our family lost our home. And we faced foreclosure. And so within the space of about 6 months, we went from a normal middle-class family who was struggling but was making it to a family that was homeless. And for the next 2 years, my family lived in an abandoned gas station. We didn't have running water, we didn't have electricity, didn't have a toilet, and for those 2 years, we really struggled. But my family was lucky, because after those 2 years, my stepfather, who was a teacher, found a job. And my family, within about 6 months after that, we were able to get back on our feet, moved into a house that had running water, had electricity, had doors. That was awesome. We had 2 toilets, which is huge. And then for the rest of my childhood, we were a low-income family that struggled, but we had the basics. And during those 2 years, my family faced many of the same challenges that I know the families that you all serve and advocate on behalf of face. We were lucky enough to have the help of friends and family and my parents' church. We also had the help from government. We got food boxes, and we were on, at the time it was called AFDC, we were on welfare, we had food stamps, and we made it through. It was tough, we really struggled, and there were times when we didn't have enough food to eat, but my family made it. And my family situation is not that unusual. People hear about the story and they think, oh my gosh, that's horrible. But the truth is, there are families all over this country who are living in situations just like my family's, or worse, today. And that has been going on since long before my family struggled in the early 1980s. The number of families who are struggling is particularly high right now, as we know. From 2007 till today, with our economic climate becoming as tight as it is, the ability for families to take care of themselves during tough times becomes even tougher. And today, during the time of so-called fiscal austerity in Congress with sequestration, we see the ability to help families who are struggling decrease. Right now, we anticipate that there are roughly 230,000 families across the country who may become homeless as a result of sequestration because they simply can't get the help that they need to make it from paycheck to paycheck or without a paycheck to keep their home and to take care of their family and feed their kids. We know that, like as I mentioned earlier, that through dedicated effort on the part of the United States government and local nonprofits throughout this country, we've been able to decrease the number of chronically homeless, childless adults by nearly 12%. But at the same time, we've seen the number of homeless families and children increasing. However, this statistic shows us that if our federal government were to place the same type of attention on reducing family homelessness as we have on reducing chronic homelessness for single adults, that we can be successful in reducing child and family homelessness as well. And so I know that each of you already have this at the very top of your list, but I think that this provides us with some facts to arm ourselves as we talk to members of Congress, that with government intervention and investment, we can reduce homelessness in this country. And reducing homelessness isn't just an act of charity. It is an investment in the future. I think the fact that I'm standing right here in front of you today is a testament to that. People helped me and my family when we were homeless. I went on to graduate from high school as the valedictorian of high school, earned 4 degrees, served a decade in my state legislature, and stand here today before you as a member of the United States Congress. Only in America could a story like that come true. And only in a country where we provided help and assistance to children and families who are homeless can a child go from living in a abandoned gas station to serving in the United States Congress in this country. There is so much more that we need to do. And during this time in particular, your voice is needed. Right now, Congress is struggling with how to deal with the sequester. You may have heard in news outlets and TV stations that the sequester isn't making that much of a difference. You've probably seen TV shows or news stories that talk about that. When I ask you, each of you today, to help be a voice to tell the truth about what the sequester is doing for American families. And again, not focusing on the fact that government dollars are providing charity. That is not at all what government dollars are doing. Government dollars are investing in the future of children and families and strong Americans who can help our country be prosperous and economically sound in the future. And so investing in programs like reducing child and family homelessness, investing in programs like the National Housing Trust Fund that help people move from homelessness into long-term housing, investing in programs like TANF that help families during those tough times like my family faced, doesn't just alleviate the pain and suffering for those families, it invests in the future of those children and those adults to help create a stronger future for our country. So I want to thank you again for being here today. I want to encourage you to tell the stories of the families that you serve with, and any of you in the room have stories of your own, of struggling as a child or struggling as an adult through homelessness or poverty or hunger. Tell your story. I found when I was running for Congress that by telling my story, scary though it was to tell it, that by doing so, I was helping other people in my community feel like they too had an opportunity. They too had a chance to make whatever they wanted out of their future, and that they too can be a part of creating a stronger and more prosperous America for all people in this country. So please stand up, tell your story, arm yourself with facts and figures, but know that here in Congress, nothing is more valuable than a story of how helping a family or helping a child made a difference not only for that child and for that family, but for their entire community. I'm living proof of that, and I ask you to help me stand and be proof of it in your own communities as well. Thank you.